Let me be clear. The President of the United States hosted a super spreader to honour a justice who would have the government control a woman's body but reject their responsibility to care for it by providing healthcare. And when the virus he helped spread through misinformation and inaction eventually caught up to him, he enjoyed the benefits of a healthcare system he denies his citizens, funded by the taxes he refused to pay. And now, as if that wasn't enough, he is calling for the imprisonment of his political opponent like a tin pot dictator, less than 2 weeks before a national election. If anything can demonstrate why the free world needs new leadership and why Donald Trump is America's greatest failure, it's today's episode. Let's get into it. The election is less than 2 weeks away. That's it. 2 weeks for both major party candidates to present their closing arguments to the American people. Granted, 2 weeks in 2020 with a global pandemic at its peak and a racist children's clown running the federal government can feel like 2 years. But in reality, there isn't much time left. Not to mention 15 million Americans have already cast their vote. And this election will be what every post-first term election has been. A referendum on the incumbent. And there are many ways to measure Donald's failures. I could tell you that he would be the first president leaving office since Hoover to have less jobs than when he started. I could tell you that he increased income inequality in America by providing a tax cut that went overwhelmingly to the wealthy. I could even tell you he stands on stage every day saying he will protect those with pre-existing conditions whilst he's in court suing to take them away right now. I could remind you he talked about draining the swamp whilst holding a secret, undeclared Chinese bank account he withdrew 15 million from in his first year in office. And he's been taking millions from special interests like the NRA as campaign contributions, not to mention other super PACs whose names are hidden by laws he supports. I could tell you he spent his time working hard for the American people, but he's golfed 283 times since becoming president, costing the American taxpayer an estimated $141 million, most of which went to his own courses and his own pockets. I could tell you he kept his 2 major campaign promises to repeal and replace Obamacare and build a wall that Mexico would pay for, but he hasn't done either of those things. I could tell you he kept his promise to get out of foreign wars, but the US troop count abroad hasn't changed since he took office. I could tell you he reduced the debt and the deficit, but the debt has increased 36% under Trump, and the deficit has grown from $585 billion since Obama left office to over $1 trillion. And that's not due to COVID. The US deficit was $984 billion prior to the pandemic. I could pretend he at least defends and promotes the Constitution, but he tried to ban an entire religion from entering the nation and had secret police assault and arrest protesters, 2 rights specifically protected under the First Amendment. And I wish I could tell you he is a man of his word, and you could trust him to do better in a second term. But he has been proven to lie over 20,000 times in his first term alone. And yet none of this matters. Not really. I mean, of course it shows he doesn't believe in conservative values. Of course it shows he can't manage money, hence his 5 bankruptcies. Of course it shows his disdain for veterans and US military personnel, hence his bogus deferments. And of course it shows that he's used the White House like a personal piggy bank. But there are 2 things that matter more than any of this. Firstly, Trump has failed at the primary job of president. He failed to keep you and your countrymen and countrywomen safe. He lied for political expedience, and it cost America over 200,000 lives and counting. At every stage of this pandemic, he failed. He failed to be honest with Americans when he knew how dangerous it was. He failed to promote simple hygiene and safety protocols like wearing masks. Even the one accomplishment he always touts, his ban on China, was a failure. Over 80,000 people travelled from China to America after that ban was enacted. Trump has failed at everything and at all stages through his presidency. He even managed to contract the virus himself, spreading it to his wife and his youngest son. Why would you vote for a man to keep you and your family safe when he can't even protect his own? And secondly, he doesn't believe in what it means to be American. How can any patriotic, red-blooded American cast a vote for a man begging his Attorney General to indict and imprison his only opponent in this election? His opponent's son, his opponent from the previous election and the previous president, and with no evidence at all. A case based solely on conspiracies, distortions, and lies. This doesn't happen in democracies, this happens in backwards autocracies, and that is what you are voting for when you cast a vote for Donald Trump. Donald is America's greatest failure. That won't change, it can't change. He was elected and will forever remain the 45th President of the United States. He and his horrid administration cannot be erased from history, but it can be corrected, and it must be corrected. On November 3rd, America gets to decide whether or not it chooses to remain a republic. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the oldest democracy on earth decides which path it will pursue. Will America take the easy path? Will enough Americans fall prey to a wannabe fascist, incapable of speaking the truth, unwilling to acknowledge science, and unmoved by the hundreds of thousands of deaths his inaction and lies overwhelmingly are responsible for? A path riddled with conspiracies, half-truths, blatant lies, and the denial of reality. Or will they roll up their sleeves? Will Americans put in the work required to save their democracy? Will they choose the hard road filled with confrontation, disagreements, and at times, arguments? In 1787, Franklin was walking out of Independence Hall when someone shouted out, "Doctor, what do we have? A republic or a monarchy?" To which Franklin famously responded, "A republic, if you can keep it." On November 3rd, America will be tested like she has never been tested before. A nation that nearly tore itself apart to defeat slavery and fought against the horrors of Nazism now finds itself with a challenge unlike any other. A battle for its very soul. A battle to resist the temptation to slide into authoritarian rule. 30% of its nation has already given up. They've decided that as long as they're on the side of the authoritarian in power, they don't care what happens. What happens to a republic built by men of good faith, however imperfect. I am a US ally, and as an ally, I am asking the remaining 70% to fight. Fight for your republic. Fight as if it depends on it. Fight like your democracy is gasping for its final breath, because it does and it is. Don't allow democracy to fall, because if it falls in America, it can fall anywhere. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like and subscribe, and hit the bell so you stay up to date with all of our videos.